What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. This is Around the VLA, Season 4, Episode 6. Today is Wednesday, April 3rd, 2024. My name is Rob St. Clair, live from Chicago. That, of course, is Vince Zanzucchi, live from Phoenix, Arizona. Once again, he's a poser. He has guitars in the background, just like me. Your lighting looks good, though, buddy. You're improving the setup over there in your garage,
Yeah,
right?
got a little couple purple Christmas lights that I found in the garage. So yeah, I got those going on. And hopefully, eventually get the other side too. And, we'll get there.
He'll get there. Yeah, good.
Go full poser.
Good vibes for a little late night around the VLA. We love hopping on here at like midnight hour Eastern time, but not just after the kids' bedtime for Vince out in Arizona. So
Yeah.
yeah, well, what's up, everyone? We got about a month worth of VLA action to catch up on. If I just put a question in the live chat or a comment, but those of you who are watching live, however many of you are up this late, we want to hear from you. We want you to get active in the chat, ask us questions, and just make it a little more of an interactive thing. We can see your questions, so yeah, just let us know if you want us to talk about anything in particular. But the first thing, Vince, that we definitely do have to talk about is the East Division Cup. Well, sorry, not the East Division Cup. That's coming up this weekend. The Central Division Cup. The Central Division Cup is what we really have to talk about. It was about 3 weeks ago now in Cincinnati, Ohio, and it was a banger of a tournament because there were 20 teams, 16 men's, 4 women. So we got 2 separate tournaments to talk about there. And we got to start off by congratulating the River City Flow. The River City Flow from Richmond, Virginia went 5-0 and pretty cleanly dominated the Central Division Cup on the men's side. They won the final in a 3-2 banger over the Milwaukee Dive. And it feels like the Flow, Vince, have been kind of on the doorstep of a performance like this since their inception. I mean, they existed in 2021 as the Legion Black rebrand, became the Flow 2022. They've played really well in big tournaments. They've gotten to the semis a couple times, but they've been just ever so slightly off from winning one of these things. And they put this team together in Cincinnati that we could tell pretty early on, even when we were talking about it, previewing the tournament on this show. But I could tell like that morning, Saturday morning, like, man, this River City Flow team, this could be the River City Flow team that finally gets one of these tournaments across the finish line. And it was.
Yeah, if you look at the size of the roster right here, I mean, you got 9 guys in the picture. I mean, it's not often that you get 9 guys that can complete a full cup tournament. And so what they did, I mean, going undefeated, rolling all the way through, and they ran into another team that's pretty much doing the exact same thing with Dive. I mean, both teams don't really have a ton of depth, but I mean, their guys can just last a tournament. And the big pickup, obviously, with River City Flow with Sergeant Dawsden. I mean, the guy's, I think he's won 2 or 3 cups already. I mean, one of the most experienced players in the league and accomplished players in the league. And so, I mean, getting an outside hitter like that was really key for them. But then, I mean, just through and through, I mean, a good rotation of middles. And the team has always been just so dangerous. It's early in tournaments, late in tournaments. That's kind of when you saw them fizzle out. And it was really neat to see them put it together and complete the full cup tournament to get the victory.
Yeah, and if you are going to rock 9 guys, you can't really build a roster of 9 guys better than this one. I mean, they had 3 middles, all of which played basically equal amounts of time. Like, they truly cycled in all 3 guys pretty much equally. Then you had 3 true wings in Sergeant Oz and Colton Stone on the left, Sam Albus on the right. But then you had Eddie Mushikian, who can play left side or he can play libero, to spell Jordan Robinson, who played libero for the Flow and was unbelievable. And then the only position you were thin at was Nick Drucker at setter, who ended up winning the MVP of the tournament, which was extremely well deserved. And that was a situation developing for a moment there, because in that final, Flow was up 2-0, and they had won those first 2 sets like pretty convincingly. Then Dive fought back, was starting to play that match on their terms a little more. And in the 4th set, Nick Drucker took a ball hard right to the face. He got popped in the face by a ball by Wyatt Patterson, I think, who is plays middle for Dive, who I think was named the all-tournament team, also well-deserved. And Drucker went down for a hot second, and it was looking like because they didn't have a backup setter, They were in basically full on emergency mode, maybe trying to make a middle, etc. Like who knows what was going to potentially happen there. But Drucker got back up, finished the match, shook it off brilliantly, and he was definitely Flo's best server in the final. He was one of Flo's best defenders in the final, and obviously he was vitally important running their offense in the final. That final was so cool because of the level of defense that was played. That might have been the best backcourt defensive match in VLA history on the men's side. It was that good. And Dive does that all the time. Like the Milwaukee Dive, anyone who's watched them the last 3 years, like you expect that from them. But the number of balls that Flo touched was insane. And then they did ever so slightly better of a job at turning those into swing chances. That I think over the duration of a crazy long competitive 5-set match, that was a little bit of a difference to me, is in out of system transition, Flo just had a tiny bit more firepower.
Yeah, and like you said, Dive being typical of the probably the best defensive team in the VLA.
I agree.
I didn't really see anyone else as good as them. And offensively, that is kind of where, I mean, they'll dig ball after ball after ball, but can they transition it? And usually it would have to come to Tyler Wills to be able to put something away for them. And I definitely saw that with River City Flow, where I don't know if it was they kept off the net a little bit more, transitioned a little harder. Maybe the pins made themselves a little bit more available to attack, which I saw that often, where I felt like it would be dig, roll shot back from Dive for Flo to be able to transition those. And so yeah, I think that Flo definitely had to earn every single bit of that at the end, because it was just a grind. I mean, it turned around to all of a sudden 2-1, now then 2-2, and then going into set 5. I mean, it was amazing to see. This was anyone's match, and a brilliant match it was.
Yeah, fantastic match. And we got Chandler North, the captain of the Milwaukee Dive. We got him in the chat. He says, I usually stat our matches and I stat digs. Couldn't keep up with all the digs and gave up. And if you're talking about a guy and a team that has insanely high standards for backcourt defense, and if he gave up statting digs, that really tells you a lot. So if you want to watch some banger defense, go back and watch this game. This is just a phenomenal match. However, congratulations to the River City Flow. They I know that was really validating for them, really validating for Sam Albus, who's been putting this team together going on 4 years, and to finally get one and to kind of dominate the way that they did, walking home with 15 points total in 5 matches, which is literally perfect, is pretty remarkable. Let's see. I also wanted to shout out. Go ahead, Vince.
I was going to say with Flow too, I mean, this was something that with their inactivity compared to so many teams, it was something we were kind of concerned about. I mean, we talked about it in previous episodes, where what is Flow going to do here? I mean, they were clearly the best team in the East, and are they going to just kind of linger and play a tournament here or there? Are they going to really put it together like we knew that they could? And it was actually really neat to see them turn around and win the tournament. I mean, that's going to be huge for their future seedings. I mean, they won't go against Iceman anymore in the first round in a pool play like they've done time after time. And so, I mean, this was big for their organization, because now they're going to go in as a 4 seed, maybe a 5 seed in any tournament they play. And they're not going to have to play a top team right away. They're going to be playing more teams that are probably tier 2 teams. And it just put them where they belong to be in the East Division Cup race.
Well said. Promotional race. Like, yeah, they're right in the mix now, where they belong. I think that's definitely the point. Is this puts Flow right where they belong. And if they the level of volleyball is not the thing that's stopping them from winning that East Division promotional race. Like, if they want to put it together consistently enough to get up and get moved up into VLA Tier 1, they can do that, and they proved it at this tournament. And the level that they played was insane. And when I really saw, when I kind of knew for sure that Flo had a great chance in this tournament, was their match against the Chicago Icemen, like you mentioned, to win their pool on day 1. And it was super important to get that win, because it allowed them to play one less match. it put them straight into the round of 8 and allowed them to skip the round of 12. And we saw what happened to the Icemen, who lost that match, took second in their pool, had to play a play-in game into the bracket, and got beat in 5 by the Milwaukee Golds to finish outside the top 8 in the tournament. So like that, winning your pool, as we previewed in that in our show before that, winning your pool was massively important because it was one less match that you had to play. Everyone else was going to slog it out on Saturday night in that bracket play-in round, and if you won your pool, you were just chilling, waiting for all that to happen. That's exactly what happened to Flo, and the level that they played at in that match against the Icemen showed me and kind of showed everybody there and everybody watching, like, yeah, this team is here to win this tournament, and you're going to have to really put something special up in front of them to take it away from them. That's pretty much exactly how it went. So we talked about Flo. We talked a little about Dive as well. Man, Dive is so darn close. They've come real close to winning some of these tournaments. But at the end of the day, winning the tournament isn't the most important thing for Dive. It's the amount of points that they came home with. And they came home with a ton of points, and they kind of distanced themselves away from the Kentucky Unicorns in the Central Division, like Tier 2 promotional race, because right now they're sitting at 94, and they've got the Unicorns behind them at 87. But I don't think between now and the VLA Cup, and at this point, it looks pretty clear that at some point during the VLA Cup, maybe even on day 1, that the Milwaukee Dive are going to get to 100 points, and they're going to get promoted. And it was because of the effort that they put in at Central Cup to go all the way to the final, win 4 matches, get points from that 5th match, and like they beat Swede in 5. They got 3 points for that. Like they walked away with the point total that they needed to put themselves in the right position. They didn't get the cup win, but as nice as it would have been to win that tournament for them, the points were the more important thing in the grand scheme of things.
I mean, really, if they would have won the tournament, yeah, they would have got the cup win, which, like you said, is irrelevant at this point. I mean, they're gonna get the promotion, right? I mean, they're not. No one's gonna keep them from getting 6 points by the end of the year.
No.
The other side is that they turn around and they have 94 points, and they still got one from that match.
They did.
I mean, they only would have ended up at, I think, 95 or 96 if they won that match. So, I mean, they're right where they want to be. They did separate from the Unicorns, but the Unicorns are on that same path where, I mean, it's just a matter of what hour of the day on Friday or Saturday that one of these two teams is going to hit 100 points in the Central Division Cup race, or Central Division Tier 2 race. So, I mean, that's obviously a conversation for another podcast we got here, but I mean, Dive did what they needed to do. They do it consistently. When they're going to win a Tier 1, when they're going to win a Division Cup, it's going to happen. I mean, I can't imagine that they're going to continue to take seconds just year after year after year. As soon as I think that they just need that extra guy, that one or two extra guys,
one more guy
them earlier in the tournament. It's not even they have the right guys for the finals. They have the right guys to win the finals. It's just those guys are taking them 4 or 5 matches through the tournament to get to that point. As soon as you can get away from having to depend on Tyler and Chandler on the outside to get you to the finals, then they can just focus on the finals. That's what's going to be the key for them to win these championships.
Couldn't have said it better. Yeah, we talk about it all the time. The format of these VLA Cup Series tournaments encourages depth. And both of those teams that made it to the final rolled in relatively thin. But yeah, if you have 1, maybe 2 more arms to help you get there, could make all the difference. However, the one guy that I was insanely impressed by for Dive, that without this guy, there was no way they get to the final. That was Connor O'Ryan switching positions from middle to the right side. He was named the all-tournament team at opposite. Very well-deserved. I was talking to Chandler afterwards. He's like, yeah, Connor was our undisputed MVP all weekend. I totally agree. He made a couple unforced errors in the final, but that's just kind of his game. That's probably going to happen. But however, the threat that you get with him in all 6 rotations, plus the service pressure, is so worth it. Because Connor is a very good middle, but he's the type of athlete that you want on the floor for more than 3 rotations. He's that kind of dynamic player. And I loved the idea to put him on the right side. I love the way that it fit. And he even dug a couple balls, which you got to do when you play for the Milwaukee Dive. So I think without Connor, there's no way Dive gets that far. And I'm curious to see if that position's how permanent that position switch stays. Like, do they need him in the middle? Can they put him on the right side full time? Will be a little bit of both. I mean, we'll see in a little over a month in Madison, I guess.
Well, one thing about Connor O'Ryan, I mean, he's one of the guys. I mean, been in the league since 2020. You know, Tier 1 with Team Pineapple. I mean, we followed his career, and I mean, he's obviously joined Milwaukee Dive because he's a local for to Milwaukee, right? But one thing that I did notice about that tournament is how much his serving improved, and I think it had to do with him being on the right side and being a 6 rotation player. One thing that you do, you get in that a little bit more comfortable. You see some balls that are a little, you get those out of system sets from time to time. You're jumping from a different pace or a different place instead of just coming out of the middle. And he's always had a really good topspin serve. But I felt like with Team Pineapple, he was a bit inconsistent with his serve. He can go on a run here and there, but I never really saw the consistency I saw from him out of this tournament, and that actually was a big thing for them. And I think that playing right side gives him that, okay, we trust you to play a little bit more of a ball control position, and maybe his mindset was a little bit less of, hey, let's terminate balls and let's put pressure on the other side. And so I think that's one of the things that, and maybe inadvertently his mindset, but definitely what I saw from seeing him from all these years playing with Team Pineapple.
Yeah, that's a pretty good take. His serving definitely has improved. Even like last season when he was playing middle for Milwaukee, he was beating people. He was winning sets single-handedly from the service line. So like he's got that pop. And I think you mentioned being terminal. I think that's actually kind of exactly what Dive needs in an attacker. Because like Chandler and Tyler are so smart. And their influence is so clearly like from the outdoor game, from the grass game, and they play such good defense, and they really rarely make unforced errors. I think Connor being on the right side and just terminating, usually for better, but even occasionally for worse, I actually kind of think that's good. I think it creates a different look. It demands more respect sideline to sideline from opposing block and defense, and definitely like having him to be able to take super confident rips at balls from all over the place and not really care about the outcome that much. That type of mindset, I love in an opposite. Have like super like easy short-term memory to forget plays, good or bad, and get back to ripping the cover off the ball your next swing. I love that. I think Connor's built for that perfectly. So I actually love that move a lot. And yeah, again, all tournament team, super well deserved. We'll talk about all the all tournament team guys in just a second. I want to shout out the two teams that came in third. The Chicago Swede, they lost a crazy 5-setter to Dive in the semis. Totally could have gone either way. And the Kentucky Unicorns finished third. This is basically a home game for them. They kind of represent the Cincinnati larger area as well over into the Kentucky border. They got pretty cleanly smacked by Flo in the semis, but up until that point, they were awesome. So I give them a lot of respect, and they got a couple guys in the all-tournament team to show for it. So we already mentioned Nick Drucker winning the MVP from the River City Flow at the setter spot. He was an absolute warrior. Again, their best server, one of their best defenders, and took that ball in the face in the final and got back up and pushed it over the finish line. That was impressive. And so is Jake Snyder for Swede. It was cool to be able to honor him as the all-tournament setter because I've been talking about him so much and how big of a move that was in the offseason, Swede bringing him in. He's done nothing but blow me away since playing at the Tier 1 level this year. Vince, you wait until you see him play in person. Wait until you see him at the VLA Cup play in person. He's so dynamic. He makes so many front court plays. His energy is infectious, and he runs a great offense. So congrats to both setters for their well-deserved all-tournament nods.
Yeah, I'll look forward to that when he's not playing against Ascension. And yeah, but no, I mean Jake Snyder definitely went out and played well. I mean, you look at all these guys on this, and it's other than Wyatt Patterson, really, and Nick Drucker, who's received a all-tournament nod, I think East Division Cup last year. Oh no, maybe that wasn't him. That was
that was Anthony Rivera. But Drucker got one at Central Cup two years ago.
That's right, 2 years ago. And I mean, there's a lot of names. I mean, you recognize the names, but you don't see them on a lot of all tournament teams, which is really awesome. And it says a lot to why these guys are where they're at, and why the teams had the success that they did, because they weren't depending on the usual suspects to get them where they were. Other guys stepped up. I mean, big one, Chandler North. I mean, typically the easiest pick in any tournament is saying Tyler Wills, OH, all tournament for dive, and Chandler North played an outstanding event.
Oh yeah, Chandler was
And
awesome. He was so good. He was definitely more terminal than Tyler. His out of system efficiency was probably better, which is definitely rare. And I got to give Chandler a huge amount of credit, also just because I saw him play in the grass. Like we had an Dive hosted like a fundraiser indoor 4-on-4 turf tournament over the weekend, which was sick. I played in it. It was very fun. Chandler is an unbelievable blocker, and he's 6'1", maybe. But the block moves that Chandler makes are insane. He's so good at showing and diving and taking stuff, and he makes these really like high level, dynamic, mature block moves, and touching balls too, which is essential for the way the dive plays. Chandler's blocking, very underrated. Anytime you guys watch a dive game, look at how number 10 blocks. Like, just look at the moves that he makes. It's very grass influenced because he's used to being one-on-one all the time. But I give him a huge amount of credit for that. I think he's one of the best wing blockers in the VLA.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. And I mean, I think that I don't think anyone on dive is underrated by any means. I think
Good point.
Very respected throughout. And so I don't think anyone would look at Chandler and be like, hey, don't watch out for that guy. I think that's just pretty much everyone on dive at this point, which is good. I mean, one of the questions was for them over the last 2 years was who's going to fill in that Oppo spot, and seeing Connor O'Ryan step up was big for them. A big one I like here in this all-tournament team, Josh Daly. He came out, was because Tier 2, obviously, they can jump from team to team, and he definitely did that, went over with Dallas Dogs, so I got to see him firsthand playing against my Ascension team last month. And for a 6'2" middle blocker, this dude has so much fire, so much power. He just quick, fast, just so impressive. And in a great attitude. I mean, I felt like he was very underused with Dallas Dogs when he played with them, and he helped them qualify for Tier 1. I mean, that's how important this guy was, and he was still up every single play, just bouncing balls, and I love him as a player. I love his personality. I think he's huge. He represents the Unicorns very, very well, and so yeah, it was really awesome to see him get the all-tournament nod, because he definitely needed some sort of accolade in the VLA. I don't know what you could put out there if he didn't get all-tournament team for this. I don't know if we had to make a Josh Daly Tier 2 blocker award or what, but I mean, this guy's been all over the place, and he's just been kicking ass all season. I love it.
Well, I love that you sung his praises just now, because that means that I don't have to. But I'm listening to you say all those great things about Josh. I'm just smiling ear to ear, because Josh is in many ways is kind of my protege. He was the third middle blocker behind me and Dave Hancock on our Purdue team for 2 years. So like Josh has been my teammate for a long time. Josh and I played together at Wapaka last summer. Like on our grass threes team. So like Josh and I are tight, and he and I talk a lot, and there isn't a guy more deserving of an award like this. I agree, because he works his butt off, and he just loves the VLA so much. He loves the VLA so much, and really like believes in what we're doing. And he's obviously taken advantage of the ability to play for two teams, because he's from Louisville, but he moved to Dallas. So he's been in the gym with the Dogs for practice. But then he flew back to Cincinnati and played this tournament with the Unicorns. Like, just a really committed, fantastic teammate, and was, in my opinion, was the Unicorns' best player at this tournament. So yeah, he's the man, and I'm super happy for him. Another guy that I'm really happy for was Colton Stone. He's a guy who's been relatively consistently playing with the River City Flow. He played for the Bay Area Dimes for a hot second too, because he used to live in the Bay Area. But that tournament in Cincinnati was by far the best I've ever seen Colton Stone play. He was so good. I was really, I mean, him and Serge and Jordan Robinson were a gnarly serve receive trio, so they passed nails. But I was really impressed by Colton's attacking range out of system. He hit every shot you could have asked for. High down the line, sharp angle inside two or three guys, you know, the high flat drive shot, the deep cross court shot over the block and in the court. Like and like picking on seams, off speed rolls, like he had it all. And he terminated some of those long plays in the final in super clutch situations. And I was just super, super impressed. Really, really impressed.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what I meant by, I mean, you look at this all tournament team right here, and if you just go off of what you would know from these teams, you're going to pick Serge Nadazin as the outside. You're going to pick Tyler Wills as the outside. You know, I mean, it wasn't those guys. I mean, don't get me wrong.
It was, but also
it was those guys.
Yeah,
but it wasn't them that took them over the top and made them where they finished. You know, it was the other guys that stepped up and had big performances. And so it's really cool to see how the team goes as a complete unit, and which is why Flow won, which is Dive played where they got to. You know, and Big Dive. I mean, we talk about the Central Division right there, and you look at Swede and Flow, or Swede and Dive and Iceman, and it's just like that is just one of the most brutal combinations.
It's such a sick pocket of volleyball. It's so good.
It's unreal. And you know, Dive and Sweet have probably one of the biggest rivalries. I mean, we've talked about rivalries and some of the biggest ones and there probably is no bigger rivalry in the VLA other than Dive and Sweet, because of how much them both coming from tier 2 and, you know, and predictably to, you know, tier 1, and now they're going to be probably in a division together next season. I mean, you know, you hate to say it before it happens, but I mean, it's going to happen.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
And it's going to be just, I mean, it's such an intense thing to see. And it just, you know, it just brings such excitement to the VLA and to that division.
Yeah, it's so great. I love living in this division so much. I love being surrounded by it. It's such a great time. 2 more guys to shout out. Wyatt Patterson is just a mainstay. I love his game so much. He's so rock solid. He's incredibly dependable, and I love his attacking game, and I love how often Dive continues to use him. It's one thing I kind of would like to see them even do more, is continue to feed the ball in the middle. And yeah, they fed Wyatt a bunch of balls. He hit like probably 800 efficiency and was probably the best middle in the tournament. So good for him. And also Jordan Robinson. What an insane pickup that was for the River City Flow. This libero out of Springfield, D3 in Western Mass. He was insane. Guy was everywhere. He touched so many balls. He single-handedly won points in the final against Dive by balls that I didn't think were diggable or retrievable, and he made those plays. And it was awesome to watch. It was that other little piece that, like, Flow's always been real good. They've always had the setter. They've always had Albus at opposite, of course. They've always had the wings. They've always had the middles. I can't remember them ever having a libero performance this good. And so Jordan Robinson, very well deserved all tournament nod as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So I think we can go back to like the list of the teams and where everybody finished. And I wanted to give credit to the Nash Villains, because again, that was a very good performance for them. They finished 5th. They got a bunch of points. They're one of the most impressive young teams in the league. I was also really impressed by both the Milwaukee Gold and the Madison Inferno. I had honestly pretty low expectations for Madison coming in, and they blew me away. They looked really good in pool play. They took Dive all the way to 5, which was super impressive. And then Milwaukee Gold scored like a program-defining upset win over the Icemen in 5 on Saturday night in that sort of black bracket play-in round. And with that in mind, I kind of wanted to pivot to take a look at the Tier 1 Central Division, because now that and let's see if I can zoom this in a little bit. Yeah, that's nice. There we go. So the Tier 1 Central Division, after the Central Division Cup, 2 out of the 3 teams did not have good tournaments. Swede was the only team that had like a legitimately good tournament. They won their pool. They beat the Unicorns in pool play, which is a good win. And then they lost to Dive in 5 in the semis. And nobody's gonna be disappointed with a loss like that to a team like that, and you get a point from it. And they were missing Chris Bulavo as one of their starting outside hitters. So they not a bad tournament for Swede by any means. It was a bad tournament for both the Chicago Icemen and the Indiana Team Pineapple. It was a bad tournament for both of them. Vince, which one do you want to start with? Because you can see.
Let's start at the top right there.
Let's do it, because the Tier 1 Central Division has been owned, literally owned by the Chicago Icemen since the existence of the VLA. And as you can see, that is not the case anymore. They still got the narrow edge on Sweden points, both of them 8 and 4, but the Icemen have 2 more points. But this is by no means their division and nobody else's anymore. And again, as good as the Icemen were last year winning the Central Division Cup, the problem that they've shown in years past in tournaments like this is poor roster management. And obviously hindsight is 2020, but they made some decisions that even at the time, I was really, really scratching my head about why they were making the personnel choices that they were making. And it came back to bite them badly. A loss to the Milwaukee Gold in the round of 12 is like not acceptable for a team that's that good. And that's no offense at all to Milwaukee, because they played awesome. Ben Playstead was a monster. He blocked like 15 balls one-on-one, and they deserved to win that match. But like, if you're the Icemen, you cannot be losing in the round of 12 as the defending champions of this tournament.
Yeah, I think that there's a couple of different mindsets here, and we talk about Tier 1 mindsets, right? And I know, like, that shirt you're wearing right there, the stupid pink and
this is an old school LVC shirt. I'm wearing it because I'm staying with Hosley in his house over the weekend. And I figured I would appease him a little bit on the show,
but also I think that teams got to remember what's important to Tier 1, right? Like, I mean, Tier 1 championships is the most important thing for Tier 1. And I think that mindset gets a little bit lost on. I mean, we promote so much with the cups and doing on the VLA Cup and the Division Cup, and there's, we got almost 55 men's teams now that are all playing in these cups, and so I understand where the focus gets to. The cup is the most important thing, but it's not. The championship
it's not
is the most important thing.
However, if you win this tournament, as the Icemen did last year, it's an automatic playoff spot. So if you're going to emphasize the playoffs, which I more than anybody want the Tier 1 teams to be emphasizing the championship event, you have to get there first. And every match matters in every event. And the Icemen losing to 2 Tier 2 teams, they literally doubled their season total of losses in this event, losing to 2 Tier 2 teams. Like that's not putting them in a good position for the playoffs.
In 2021, Icemen had a losing record against Tier 2 teams and won the Tier 1 championship.
Yes, they did. That's a great point.
So, is Icemen's focus the Central Division Cup? Is their focus the VLA Cup? Because it hasn't been Team LVC's the last 2 years. It's
great point.
So, I mean, I think that Icemen is in a good position regardless. Iceman's not going to be – they're not going to finish lower than Pineapple. They're not going to finish lower. No. I think that they're a pretty safe bet that they're going to make Tier 1 championships.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're going to the playoffs for sure. I'm not saying that, but like –
So I think that maybe – and I agree. If they're trying to win the Central Division Cup, obviously what they did was inexcusable. I mean, you can't lose in the round of 12 trying to win that tournament. But I also, we talked about roster management. I was watching that match, and I was just, baffled as much as you. But then I'm thinking to myself, is their goal to win this tournament? And I felt like it wasn't. And and maybe we need Tim Faulkner on here to explain himself. I don't know. But just speculating, I don't think that their focus is that tournament. And it may not even be VLA Cup, which in turn would, Central Division is going to be Swedes for the taking.
It is now.
They're going to win this tournament. They're going to win this division for the first time ever if Icemen are only focused on the championships, which is possible. However, and I'm just saying from a Tier 1 perspective, they're going to make the championships. If their focus is the championships, they're in a good place. However, we look at things in a little bit broader perspective on, hey, go out, show up, represent, and be that team that goes and wins. Go for the Triple Crown. Win the championship, win your Division Cup, win your VLA Cup. It hasn't happened yet by any of these teams, any of our teams, even close. LVC only's got 2. And you saw the team that they put together last year at VLA Cup. It was not a team to win a VLA Cup. It wasn't. It just wasn't. And so Iceman, I don't think, had the right mentality going into this. However, their mentality may not be let's win the Central Division Cup. I think their mentality is, hey, let's get through this while we're focusing on. I mean, they're still reeling and dealing from the loss of Dave Hancock. I think if you have him, it's a different story on the perspective that you have on the season. If you have Dave Hancock, you're trying to win every tournament. If you don't have Dave Hancock, I think you're trying to get through each tournament with the best possible outcome, and then you're focusing on the championships. That's my thinking.
Okay, that I'll kind of meet you in the middle on that. I do know for sure, in being there and talking to them and just listening to the conversations, that their goal was to win this tournament. So that obviously did not go very well. But specifically, some of the choices that they made, for example, their pool, the Icemen's pool, they played the Chicago Vibes first thing in the morning. They kicked the crap out of them 3-0. They played basically their optimal starting lineup in order to do so. Then against the River City Flow, who is another contender to win the tournament, and even though you're going to the playoffs, we talked about what was on the line. You have to play one last match. And as we know, the Icemen have an outside hitter problem right now with only Kyle Overby and basically nobody else next to him. They have an outside hitter problem. So what they did in that Flow match was they decided to try the experiment of putting Griffin Shields, their superstar opposite, on the left side. Why would you do that against a team like Flow? Play your starters, sure, the first set against the Chicago Vibes. If you pound that team into the dirt like they did, then try the experiment. Don't try the experiment against the best team in your pool and maybe a team that is a contender to win the tournament. That doesn't make sense. And then they kind of did something similar in the match against the Milwaukee Gold. They assumed they were going to beat that team. They did not take the Milwaukee Gold seriously. They assumed that they were going to win that match. They rested Andre Brown, they rested Griffin Shields, and they brought those guys in off the bench when they were down 2-1, they were down 2-1. They won the fourth, they lost the fifth. It was too late. They overlook teams, and then when they finally have a team that they can get past while giving their main guys some rest, they didn't do so. So that's kind of what I mean. These specific things are an issue. However, their help is coming, because I think they're going to get at least one, maybe two outside hitters from overseas. They're going to get Matt Slavinsky. His season in Germany ended today. So he will be headed back stateside very soon, and he will be in the mix of the VLA Cup. And I'm not sure about Mike Mikolau, who's playing over in Finland, but they desperately need him as well, because if they have all those guys, their team is complete and they are a championship contender at everything that they touch. They definitely have an outside hitter problem, and they definitely need to have some hard conversations about how do they strategize and have success in these tournaments if that's what their goals are. But for whatever they're doing right now, it's not working. However, you're absolutely right. They're going to the playoffs. They're going to be fine. You know who's not going to be fine? Who's not going to the playoffs? Team Pineapple. Their season's over.
Yeah.
It's over.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
They went 1-3 at this tournament.
I do not think that they can do anything. I mean, and we were talking about Inferno earlier, and I really wanted to give them a shout out for knocking off Team Pineapple, because I mean they played a great match against them. I mean, a huge breakout tournament in my opinion for Inferno, because
Agreed.
They've really been kind of I don't want to use the term bottom feeder, because they've always kind of been in the mix. They just haven't really put together a performance like they did this past event, and they finally did in that match against Team Pineapple where they beat them. I mean, that was huge, and that was really cool to see. But you got to feel a little bit for Pineapple. It's like, I mean, they're just not putting it together. They're not doing what they need to do to be successful. And I mean, I put a lot of that on the players. I mean, I just don't feel like they have the pride of playing for, you know, their program, the organization that is probably one of the most storied and most important in in the VLA, and I just don't. I think that they've kind of felt maybe a little lost on that, but it's really too bad to see what's kind of happened to them this year, because I did have a little bit more optimism from them from the previous events where they played against Iceman and Swede, and you know, battling like they did, you know, still getting that big win against Swede like they did. You know, there was room. there was an outlook of positivity there.
There
And
was.
now it's just like, all right, well,
Yep. Season's
maybe
over.
next season, you
They,
know.
they they got they got last in their pool, and they lost to 3 tier 2 teams. Yeah,
Yeah.
it sucks, but their season's over, and I think that's it at this point. So if we look at the entirety of the tier 1 standings, like Pineapple at this point is an afterthought, and you know who that's good news for? That's the Northeast Force. And we'll talk about them. We'll talk about them coming up for the East Division Cup in a little bit. But that's big news for the Northeast Forces now that they don't really feel like they are chasing or they're competing with Team Pineapple for a playoff spot anymore. But the Icemen and Swede are both playoff caliber teams. And Swede, like I've said, Swede at their peak, especially what they showed in that second regular season event, that is a championship level team when they put it all together. It really is.
Yeah. No, I think so too. I think that what they can do, I mean, can they beat LVC at their peak? I don't know if that's possible. Even Iceman and Swede's going to be a great battle, but I mean, it's their division for the taking at this point. I think that all they got to do is put together a really solid VLA Cup. I think that they just got to let Iceman kind of do what they've traditionally done, which is not fared well against tier 2 teams. And if that's the case, I mean, this is Swede's division, and it's really unfortunate for Iceman. You hate to see a team fall. That doesn't mean that they're not going to be one of the favorites to in the tier 1 championships. But as far as winning that Central Division, which is it's such a big deal for all of our teams. I mean, to win a division championship is I mean, that's really important for your rivalries, your just the pride of having that championship.
It's important for your playoff seed as well.
Exactly, and I think that Swede's in the prime spot to do it.
Yep, I agree. All right, anything else about the men's Central Division Cup, or because we got another Central Division Cup that we got to talk about?
Yep, absolutely. Let's get to it.
Congratulations in probably the most epic fashion maybe ever to the Skiva Storm. This is one of the craziest stories in league history, and I just love it so much. The Skiva Storm, SKEVA, stands for Southern Kentucky Elite Volleyball Academy, a club in Southern Kentucky. They came into existence like maybe a month before this Central Division Cup tournament. You can tell, like, you see their t-shirt jerseys as part of their celebration for winning this tournament. They're like, yeah, we did this in t-shirts because the jerseys that they ordered got delayed by like 2 days and weren't going to make it in time. They had to make like emergency t-shirt jerseys with numbers only on the back. And they got second in the pool play at this tournament. They lost to the Madison Embers in pool play. They then saw the Madison Embers in the final. They went down 0-2. And they brought it all the way back in a reverse sweep to win their first VLA event that they've ever participated in. That's absolutely insane. And the way that they did it was so impressive. Like, the level was really high, especially for a team that had never played VLA before. Like, the Madison Embers have been playing. Like, they played last year's VLA Cup. They have been playing a bunch of exhibitions up in Wisconsin and some tournaments like that coming into this. And they dominated pool play on Saturday. So they had the experience, but this Skiva Storm team had no such thing. They just had themselves and a little bit of practice and a whole lot of belief and the inability to give up down 2-9 in the final. They came back and won, and it was just awesome. It was awesome to watch, and I loved the level of volleyball that both teams played. It was legitimately fun. Like, what's great about women's volleyball, a lot of versatility between positions, doing some crazy things on offense, running like complicated routes, different attackers making plays all over the place, huge defensive plays, long rallies. It was just fantastic. And the Skiva Storm did something that very few VLA teams will ever do, especially under the current format with the league as big as it is now, to win a division cup in your first ever event. Like, I'm not sure if that's ever going to happen again.
Yeah, no, this was huge, and especially because you saw how much they grew as a team from the first day to the end. I mean, they played. I think their second match was against Embers, and they got swept 3-0.
Yep.
They got. I mean, I felt they got beat pretty handily. I thought this was Embers tournament to just kind of roll through at this point, right?
And it looked that way 2 sets through the final.
And you know, it was, I hate to say it, because I mean, I have a soft spot for the Embers, because I mean, for them being involved with the league from the get go. I mean, they're one of the first teams to really get out there and put themselves out there as a VLA team. They're going with us to they're going with Ascension actually to Europe in the fall.
Oh, no way! I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Co-branding. So I mean, there's a lot there with us and the Embers. So when they went up, I'm driving home from San Diego from coaching out there, and it's 2-0, and I'm thinking, I got it on my iPod or my iPad. I'm watching the game, and I'm thinking, you know what? We could use a little bit more entertainment. Okay, it's cool. They go down 2-1, whatever. All of a sudden it's 2-2, and I'm freaking out, going, "Oh man, I wasn't asking for this." I mean, yeah, I wanted more volleyball, but just watching that match instead of watching the road was so much more exciting. And I mean, it was really, really impressive match. And you got to give Skiba Storm a huge, huge shout out, like you did. And I like where they're going. I think that they've bought into the league. I think that they are really motivated. We've been having some conversations with them about the direction that we're going, and I'm excited what they're going to do, because I think that this is a huge. I mean, you could be looking at a future Tier 1 women's team right here.
Yeah, very possibly. And like it's hard not to have a great taste in your mouth from your first VLA event when you win it in this fashion and not be super motivated to keep playing ball and keep the good thing going that you've got. And the same goes for the Madison Embers, honestly, because they dominated this tournament until set 3 of the final. Like they dropped maybe one set in all of pool play. Yep. Yeah, they did. They went 9 and they dropped a set to the Steel City Surge. Yeah, they went 9-1 sets in pool play. They went up 2-0 in the final and then got reverse swept. But I agree that the Embers were, to the eye test, by far the best team in the tournament until set 3 of the final. So like that comeback by the Skiba Storm just showed so much heart to me, and it was awesome to watch. And the level of volleyball was very high. The long rallies, the legitimately great swings, the really cool, dynamic and creative offenses. Awesome. Go back and watch that final. We have to give huge credit to the all-tournament team for this event. Starting off with Carly Lurison, who was named the MVP. This was like a little bit of a non-traditional MVP pick, but I really stuck by it because she was the X factor that changed things in that reverse sweep in the final, because she came off the bench. She came off the bench, I think, to start the second set, maybe even the third. I don't remember for sure, but she came off the bench in the final at opposite and was like, when I'm talking about like dynamic offenses and hitters moving around and hitting balls in different spots at different speeds and just making different plays, that was exactly what Carly Lurison brought off the bench. She was just fearless, taking rips at balls from all over the place, and without her, there's no chance the Storm pull off that reverse sweep. So I liked that pick for MVP, of just like being a big reason why that reverse sweep in the final even happened.
Yeah, no, she was spectacular. And then, I mean, just moving on to Caitlin Cosgrove, I mean, the team captain, I mean, she was phenomenal. It was really, really exciting to see her, get out there, and the way she moved the ball around and got all her hitters involved. I mean, I was impressed, because I mean, I hate to say it, we always get these setters like myself or Tim Faulkner that are like kind of team captain. So it's like we play a little bit more than maybe we should. But she stepped up, and it was really, really neat to see, because we haven't really seen a lot of the VLA volleyball from the women's side yet. I mean, we haven't really seen how good these players really are. I mean, other than seeing the Midwest Magic last year and the VLA Cup there, I mean, yeah, we followed it a little bit. We didn't really emphasize it quite so much. But now seeing some of these players come out and play, and I mean, there's some really good players, and we're going to be talking about her like we're talking about Nick Drucker. It's going to be like, man, look what she can do out there. And I mean, that's what impressed me so much, is just how good this team really was.
Yeah, and that's exactly what is so cool about how young the women's VLA level is. This is only the second full value tournament ever, and already there's so much growth, but still so much potential. Like, you're seeing these players and teams make early marks on the league. It's fantastic. And Ali Verzani is another one who is like Storm's primary outside hitter. Like she was kind of the starting pitcher where Carly Lurson was the closer in a way. Like Verzani was the offense. She was the offense for the first like maybe 3.5 sets, and then it got a little bit more diverse towards the end as the matchups sort of started to change. But Ali Verzani has a cannon, and she was hitting shots from places that I didn't think were possible, and that was really cool. And her counterpart on the Madison Embers side was Mackenzie Morgan, who played a really similar role. Like she was the big arm that was taking big out of system swings against two blockers, and was being forced to hit crazy angles from crazy spots and just try and terminate rallies. And those two were no-brainers, like absolute no-brainers for the all tournament outsides. Like those two going head-to-head in the final was really cool to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I mean, we talked about Surge and what they did. I mean, this really was kind of and that's the unfortunate thing about a 4-team tournament, is you don't get a whole lot of diversity. I mean, seeing the 1 and 2 team kind of, do what they did. I mean, you expect them to kind of be 1 and 2, obviously, and then you see the reverse sweep. But Kayla Dinkins is also at middle blocker representing Surge. I mean, they played well against Inferno and Storm, right? I just didn't see that they really had a whole lot else to battle the full squad that both of the two teams really had. There's a lot more depth there than I felt like the other two teams had, and so but yeah, I felt like Kayla Dinkins really kind of held her own and battled, and you like to see someone that really stood out amongst two really solid teams, where I felt the other two were kind of more the mid-level team that just, not saying they didn't have a chance, but just didn't really have the firepower to compete against the other team.
Right. Yeah, 4-team tournament, like it is what it is when you're trying to name an all tournament team. But Surge was good. They took third. And Kayla Dinkins was probably their best player, and I love shouting out middles, so congrats to her. Same with Molly Livingston from the Madison Embers. She was a force, a legitimate force. She was awesome on the slide. She blocked a ton of balls. Her jump float serve was actually pretty nasty as well. And again, I love giving middle shout outs. But another player that I really loved was Amanda Kind from the Madison Embers. And I think naming her as the alternate opposite is fair because that's where she lines up. She lines up across from the setter. But I think I counted at some point during the final, and she got kills from 5 of the 6 spots on the floor. It was insane. They moved her around so much. So obviously, being an opposite, she was on the right side and like the front court, back court, right side player, at least for a little bit. But she ran a whole lot of stuff in the middle. She was running quick. She was running like 1 and 31. She was blocking in the middle, like blocking sideline to sideline, which was impressive. She was like a legit option on the left side in rotation 1. And then she was like hitting balls randomly in different places out of the back row, like the truest utility player you can imagine. And I just, it was really cool the way that they used her and the way that she was productive literally all over the place. And then Ashley Hood, last but not least, at libero for the Skiva Storm, was insane. She dug so many balls. Like speaking of like long rallies, like we love in the women's game, she was everywhere. I always go back to the term a difference-making libero, which is exactly what she was. So yeah, congratulations to all these players, and just the show that the women put on, and especially in that final, was just fantastic, and only the second true VLA women's tournament ever, and it just makes me really excited for where that division is going to go and how it's going to look at the VLA Cup this year.
Yeah. I mean, it really was. I mean, I thought that had Flo completed the sweep in 3-0 in that men's finals, I thought the women's at that point was definitely the better match to have watched. I really thought it outshined the championship matches until obviously Dive turned it around and then taking it to 5. But that finals match was really impressive to watch, and it's really exciting to see where we're going as a league with these teams.
Yep. So great work to all the teams, the Central Division Cup. Definitely check out the tournament page on the website and all the latest standings. Everything's up to date. You can see where all the teams are at as we look towards now The East Division Cup. This is it. This is the last Divisional Cup Series tournament of the season. Vince is rocking the Team 9 sweatshirt. They won the West Division Cup back in January. We just talked about the Central Division Cup in Cincinnati in March. This is it for the Divisional Cup Series. We're going back to the town of Half Moon. It's just near Albany, New York, at the Impact Athletic Center. Exact same place we were last year. A very similar setup. I love that facility. I'm excited to be back. 9-team event this year. I think it was 10 last year. 9 teams this year on 2 courts. It's going to be nonstop action, and I really like the format. I like the way the pools have shaken out. First and foremost, Vince, obviously, is Team LVC. As you said on the last show that we did, this right now, this league, the VLA, belongs to Team LVC. And they, to that end, I think there might be a little bit of pressure on Team LVC at this tournament. They're the reigning Tier 1 champs. They're the reigning East Division champs. They're the reigning East Division Cup champs. And they're playing this tournament at home again. Anything but a win for them in this tournament would be disappointing. However, this is Team LVC we're talking about, and they will be like by far the odds-on favorite to win this thing at home. And if they dropped a set in their pool, I would be stunned.
Yeah, I think the way that this pool shook out for them was very beneficial.
Yeah.
I mean, seeing 2 teams that they are, mid-level Tier 2 teams, Frontier and Beer City Brewers, and local team right here, Frontier, close to Team LVC. I mean, I just think that this is their pool, and I mean, you're talking about the best team in the VLA. I just don't see them dropping. If they do, it's one of the teams is going to step up and play 120%, and LVC played 75, and yeah, if that happens once, it's going to happen. Maybe they go 3-1, but I just don't see any of them upsetting them. I don't see any of them. I couldn't see them going to 5 with anyone. No way. In this pool. I think they're gonna sweep the pool.
Yeah, and Joby Ramos will be there. He is the 2-time back-to-back MVP. He has put Team LVC at 7-1 and at the top of the Tier 1 standings. And I will never bet against the team that he is on. I'll call it right now that Team LVC is going 6-0 in sets in this pool. And by the way, format-wise, as much as we love bracket pools in the VLA, we are rocking 3 round-robin pools on Saturday at this event. So everyone's going to play each other exactly once, 2 matches per team, and then we'll do the normal like tiebreakers to decide who goes where. But I would be stunned if Team LVC didn't win this pool, and then they'll put themselves directly into the semifinals, because that's the other thing. You have to finish top 2 in your pool at this event to make the bracket. If you finish 3rd in your pool, you'll play like a sort of consolation round robin on Sunday. But the winners of pools A and B go directly to the semis, and that would put Team LVC in an ideal spot to only have to play 4 matches, including the championship match, to get this thing done. And I would definitely pick that. I honestly have nothing more to say about pool A, but pool B is legitimately interesting. Pool B has the Boston Bounce, who is classically that 2nd-ranked team in the Tier 1 East Division. They were the runner-up at the Tier 1 playoffs last year, but that Team LVC hump is just one that they have not been able to get over. And they also have a little bit of the Icemen thing going on, where they've underperformed at these divisional cup tournaments. Like the East Cup 2 years ago, they lost in the final. They got swept by Team ECV, who became the Cleveland Kong, and they had a golden opportunity there because Team LVC was way understaffed and couldn't get it done. Last year, they had a golden opportunity as well. They were in the semis and lost to the Kentucky Unicorns because they didn't really put their best foot forward. Didn't go to the finals there either. I hope that the Boston Bounce is super motivated in this tournament and in this pool, because their first matchup, first thing Saturday morning, against the 8th seed in the tournament, the DC Dynasty, is a dark horse to win this thing.
Yeah, DC Dynasty is undefeated. They have not lost.
Correct.
As an organization, have never lost. All right, so you're looking at that. They're going in, for one, they're riding a high. So one of 2 things is going to happen right now is Boston Bounce is going to step up and put DC Dynasty in the place, because I feel like DC Dynasty hasn't really been tested as much as a lot of other tier
Now,
two teams
that's
out
the
there.
key thing to point out is you say that they're undefeated in their existence, which is true, but this is this is their first season as being a franchise. They won, I think, the East Division Cup qualifier, right? They
Right.
won that tournament. They've played a bunch of exhibitions. They've won everything that they've touched. They've never played an event like this.
Right. They've never played a cup,
Right.
and the fact that they were, I mean, they had to win that qualifier to get into this tournament to begin with. So yeah. So I mean, right here, like I said, one of two things is going to happen. Boston Bounce is going to shut them up right away because Boston Bounce is the second best team in the VLA. Really, I mean, if you think about it, they got to the championship last year. I mean, the only reason that they're losing matches right now
I
is
wouldn't
because
say that. I'm not gonna give them second best in the VLA.
they're playing against Team LVC every single weekend. You're getting better when you do that.
Good point.
Whether you win or lose, you're seeing a higher competition than you're going to see. If they're in the West Division division, they're not seeing the competition they're seeing out of Team LVC. So you get a team that's been together for years, and a team that can actually go out and succeed. I mean, you talked about them underperforming, but they were in the semifinals. You talking about underperforming? They were in the championship 2 years ago.
No,
3 years ago.
You got to win. You got to beat the tier 2 teams and win those tournaments.
Right.
If you ask them, they would say the same thing. They should.
Right.
They think they should have won the East Cup in 22. They think they should have gotten to the finals in 23, and they did neither. So I'm saying this very intentionally so that they listen to me and become motivated to get to the final. Like if you lose to Team LVC in the final and you play a good match, then that is what it is. But that should be the expectation for this Boston Bounce franchise, and
Right.
that's kind of what I'm putting on them by saying this.
Right. 100%. They should finishing second. That's fine as long as Team LVC is number one.
Right.
Other than that, Boston Bounce has no excuse to being underneath any of the teams that are in this event. So it's going to start right here in Pool B with DC Dynasty, and DC Dynasty has something to prove because they haven't seen any of these teams, and so you're going to see right away. One of these teams is a pretender, one of them is a contender because if Boston Bounce can't get it done against DC Dynasty can do a lot of things. In my opinion, from what I've watched. From what I've seen that they can do, they could be something special in Tier 2 with the sight to get to Tier 1. And, we may be looking at them in 2 or 3 years, but it's going to be a lot going into this very first match. And I think that's really the story of the tournament at this point is these two teams playing each other first.
Definitely the story of the tournament. I agree. And they do play each other first thing in the morning, 8:30 a.m. on Saturday, which I think is so awesome and will really set the tone for this entire thing. And this DC Dynasty team, yeah, I'm fascinated by how they're going to perform at this level. They're rolling deep. They've got some names from big name programs. They've got some Penn State talent. They've got some UCLA talent. They've got just a lot of Division I talent from all kind of over the East Coast. I know they have Luke Braswell normally, who won this tournament last year with Team LVC setting, but he's not on the roster for this weekend, which is a bummer. It would have been cool to see him potentially play against his former team. But yeah, I have high expectations for the DC Dynasty, and the Boston Bounce had better not sleep on them first thing Saturday morning. And unfortunately, like the third team in this pool who kind of get the short end of the stick is the Colorado Kingsmen, who are traveling all the way from Denver to be here. But for what it looks like to me, because you and I both, Vince, you especially have a huge amount of respect for the Colorado Kingsmen, especially what they did at the West Division Cup this year. What it looks like to us is that this is not going to be the same team as that. And
Right.
What it looks like is that without the team from Colorado that they're used to having, it doesn't look like they're going to be able to put up much of a fight against Bounce and Dynasty in this pool.
Yeah, and like you said, we respect what Kingsmen are doing because they are out there and they're putting themselves in a position to earn points. And I don't want to compare them to a Lost Travelers, where Lost Travelers has had the tendency to go out and their victory will be either in a pool play or a consolation match. Because Kingsmen has actually played and won and gotten a lot farther than Lost Travelers have in their tournaments. And they're a very, very potent team. I mean, we ran up against a consolation match, and I mean they beat us in 5, and they only had Rising Tide on the ropes. They're a good team. They're a really, really good team when they have their guys. But I think that what they're doing is they are just doing whatever they can to make sure that they are present in as many events as possible, just trying to grab a point here or there. And then when they do have their squad, then they're grabbing 6, 8 points. And so I still think that they're kind of one of the sleepers in the West, but that's not their team in this tournament. I think
no, it's not.
Yeah, I think that they're a team that they're gonna. I hate to say it, but I predict them going going to being the 3rd seed here, going to the consolation bracket or consolation pool, and I think that they will get some points.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't see them beating Bounce, and I don't see them beating DCF. Thanks.
Not with this particular team. I think if they had the same team as the West Cup, it would be one of the sickest pools in VLA history. But it just doesn't look like that's going to be the case. A pool. Speaking of teams that have pressure, the Northeast Force as the 1 seed in Pool C have a lot of pressure. I mean, obviously they're coming in significantly behind the 8 ball in the Tier 1 rankings. They are 1-7. They do have 6 points, which is a lot more than Pineapple had when they were 1-7. But the Northeast Force must win this pool. And last year at this tournament in this same building, the stakes were very similar because the Northeast Force came in. They might have been like 2-6 at the time, or they had a rough.
I think they were 2-6. Yeah,
rough start to the season. But then they came in and they won their pool. They were seated the same at the top of Pool C, and they won their pool, and they really put themselves like in the mix, and they ended up qualifying for the playoffs, actually, barely. Same situation here. They must go 2-0 in this pool, and I don't know enough about the Atlanta Bobcats to be able to predict that game, and that's kind of a fun little wild card. Is what that team's going to bring. I know they've done some good things the last year and a half playing exhibitions, but this is also their first true VLA Cup tournament, and we all know how much of a learning curve that can be. The other question is what do the New York Lost Travelers end up bringing to this tournament? Because they're a team that, kind of like you said with the Kingsmen, the Lost Travelers play a lot. They just want to like make appearances at as many events as possible. But the last couple major events that they've played, they haven't finished particularly well, and they haven't gotten, in my opinion, the number of points that they should have gotten to make all of this traveling worth it for them. But this is about as close to a home game as they're going to get, and they need legitimate points from this tournament in order to kind of stay relevant. They're going to continue getting decently high seeds just because they've been around for a long time. They have, I think, 44 points, but a big proven opportunity for them. And I expect the Force versus Lost Travelers match to be super competitive.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, like you said with Bobcats, I mean, it's just kind of an unknown right there because they do field a variety of different teams, right? And you've seen them, and they've gone and played Unicorns and have won. And then they've played some teams where I think that they lost to the Flyers, brand new team out of Miami area, and they lost 2-0 to them. And so it's like, okay, so what team are we fielding here? I mean, what are you bringing to the table? You just don't know until you've seen them against some of these other teams. So again, Force has their entire season in their hands right now.
Yep. Absolutely.
They have the ability to go and get 2 victories right here, and I believe that would put them at 3-1 or 3-6.
3-7, and 3-7. 3-7's manageable because even if you by the way, the winner of Pool C does not go straight to the quarterfinal. You don't go straight to the semifinal. You have to play a quarterfinal game, and if you win that pool, if Force wins their pool, they're going to get a really favorable matchup in the quarterfinal with a great chance to get some more points. Right. And then there's a chance that they might even play a consolation game if they were to lose in the bracket and get even more points. So winning matches is more important for the Northeast Force than winning the tournament here, without question. And they know how this works. They knew how it worked last year, and they had a good event. I think they went 3-1 in last year's East Division Cup. They didn't finish high in the tournament, but they got a lot of points, and they ended up putting themselves in a spot to make a charge towards the playoffs. That's exactly what they're going to have to do here, because 1-7 is, even with 6 points, they need a big weekend. They need a big weekend, and they know it. So I'm optimistic about the Northeast Force. They play in a hard division. They have had rough starts to the season now for 3 years in a row, but they know exactly what to do in this situation. They've been here before, and I expect them to win this pool.
Yeah. I think I expect them to win this pool, and I mean, even if they go 0-2, I think that they're going to finish at worst 2-2 on the weekend. They can go 0-2 in the pool and then go turn around and win both the consolation matches and grab their 6 points or whatever they need to do. I think that Force is in a decent place right now to put themselves to making a splash at the VLA Cup, if that makes sense. I think that they just need to take care of business, but it's just how much do you want to work at the VLA Cup? Last year, they depended on a last, I think they had to win in 3 or 4.
Yeah, they had to get 3 points in a consolation match against the Dallas Dogs, and they did. They beat them in 4, and got there by literally 1 point.
Right. And so it's like, okay, so do you want to put yourself in that position, or do you want to put yourself in the position where you don't have to win that consolation match, and it's tough because, I mean, you're looking at the teams ahead of them. Ascension, Rising Tide,
wild cards, total wild cards.
Total wild cards, but we've got 2 events left.
Right.
Force has 2 events left, but they're sitting at only 6 points. So they need to have 12 points, honestly, at the end of this tournament at least, to put them in contention, so that Rising Tide and Ascension just don't beat each other up and then end up with 6 points or playing against Waves is going to be tough. But I just, if Force wants to have a chance, it's gonna have to be this tournament. I feel like they just need to have a better event. They need to do. They need 6 points, preferably 9. And
I was just gonna say, I kind of think they need 9.
Yeah,
I kind of think they need 9 points. If they get to 15 points after this event, like that puts you squarely in the picture. And it also kind of depends on the tournament that Bounce has. But if they passed Bounce in points, I would be stunned. But if Force got 9 points, that would be mission accomplished for this event, I think, for sure.
Right. Yeah, I think that you're playing with fire a little bit with 6. I think if they do anything less than 6, then then
they're in Team Pineapple spot, and
Team Pineapple at this point. And I don't know mathematically how it shakes out, but I just feel Ascension and Rising Tide, particularly with Rising Tide playing at home, that last event in Long Beach, I feel like they'll have it locked up at that point.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. I glossed over this. I should have spent more time a little bit on Pool A, because the Niagara Frontiersmen against the Beer City Brewers, even though neither of them are going to be competitive against Team LVC, and I will stand by that, against each other, that's actually a really fun game, because I think they played actually twice at this tournament last year. Maybe I'm making that up. They played at least once. I think they might have played in pool play and also in a consolation game. And I think that both of them may have gone 5. And I think that they were split 1-1 and who won each game. So the battle for second in that pool is going to be legitimately interesting. The battle for first in that pool is not going to be interesting.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, as much as we look at an LVC, and it's really tough to see these logos right next to them and just go, okay, well, I mean, it's LVC's pool, obviously, right? But if you look at a handful of these teams, Frontiersmen, Beer City Brewers, Lost Travelers, those are such fun competitive matches to watch. And there's so many implications in their own right. It's tough to say, oh, well, Team LVC, great. Team LVC is great. We know that. Yeah, Joey Ramos, 2-time MVP, whatever. But then you look at, there's so many other implications in this cup and what can be accomplished right here. I mean, you got some of these teams that are, fighting for stature in their own divisions, and it's going to be really nice to see these competitive matches and not just write off Team LVC just to win the championship. Frontiersmen is a really good team. Beer City Brewers, really competitive, really good team. And that's going to be a really great match to watch, too. And I hate to overlook them, like you said, because some of those matches are some of the best to watch because there's so much going on. And these teams see each other so much more like Beer State Brewers and Frontiersmen, they see each other
See each
just
other
as
a
much as
lot.
Team LVC and Bounce do. So, I mean, you can't overlook any of these, and especially because of the point value of them all.
Right.
This is a really good setup right here, and I like to see Bobcats and Dynasty in those last two spots because they're the up and coming teams. They've done a lot without playing a cup yet, and now this is their first opportunity to play a cup, and we really see what they're made of.
Yes, we will. Yeah, I love the format of all these VLA Cup Series tournaments because at least at some point in the tournament, and especially by Sunday, you're going to be playing teams that are almost exactly at the same level as you, and it's going to produce incredibly competitive matches across the board. And those matches have big stakes because they're worth triple the number of points as they are when you just play them in exhibition games. And like even the teams that finish third in their pools who go to this like silver consolation round robin thing on Sunday, one of those teams could grab 6 points out of that, which is a massive deal. That it would take them multiple weekends of traveling and playing in exhibitions to come close to getting 6 points anywhere else. So that's why these tournaments are great. Every match matters, and where you finish in your pool filters you out to be playing more games against like competition. That's what it's all about. And you're going to get a lot of great matches against teams that are super competitive, and which is why we have it set up the way that we do. But at the end of the day, I think that there are 3 contenders to win this tournament. I think it's Team LVC, I think it's the Boston Bounce, and I think it's the DC Dynasty. I think that's a dark horse, and that match, Bounce versus Dynasty, who will potentially decide who wins Pool B, is going to have a lot to do with how this thing goes, and I'm super excited about that.
Yeah, I can't argue with that point. But historically in cups, I mean, it's usually not a 1 seed that goes, or even a 1 through 3 seed that goes and wins this tournament, or any of the tournaments. I mean, LVC was kind of the one that did it once, and I think Rising Tide did it one time, and other than that, every other team has been. There's just so much possibility in these events, and so. You can't write off anybody. You just never know who's going to come out and all of a sudden have just an amazing weekend. So yeah, definitely be ready to tune into that. And this weekend's going to be some exciting volleyball.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. So all the detail you need about the tournament, the schedule, the format, the teams, actually team rosters as well. You check out the page on the website. If you want to click one of these logos, and it'll show you who's on that team and all the information about them. Big shout out to our league partner Stat Together for helping us integrate the app and the website and allow us like just a lot more options and flexibility and roster control, which is fantastic. So we got a lot more info publicly on the website now, which is great. But yeah, check out everything here on the website for the East Division Cup. It will be the place that everything is updated throughout the whole tournament, pool play schedule results, bracket for sure. If you're playing in the tournament, you've got to take a look at this schedule grid. Really, really important. And a good thing to point out for everybody is that because we're only playing on 2 courts, trying to pack in a decent number of matches, everything's going to start both Saturday and Sunday mornings at 8:30 a.m. Eastern. After that, the times that it's listed on the schedule are just going to be approximate. So what we're going to do is we're going to roll the schedule where as soon as a match is over, the 30-minute warm-up period for the next match in that court is going to start right away. So we're going to get all these games in as much as we can. So these match times, as you see them on the website, aren't exactly set, other than the first 2 matches in the morning. Those will start at 8:30. But after that, we're going to, as soon as the match is over, 30-minute warm-up starts. We're going to keep it moving as best we can. And broadcasting-wise, hopefully everyone knows where to go by now. It's right here on the YouTube channel where you're watching this. Every game will be streamed individually for members only. So definitely pick up a membership to the channel for $1.99 a month. There's a link in the description for that. And then we'll have the VLA all-day broadcast that'll cover both courts. We'll run all day, both Saturday and Sunday. I'll be there. I'll be on the mic. We're going to get a lot of teams on the mic and some different voices. Maybe even a classic Chris Hosley, CJ Denk sighting for one of the commentary blocks. So look forward to that. Those guys always are good at chopping it up and telling some stories when we put a microphone in front of them. So yeah, the website is going to be a fantastic resource. The Instagram page is obviously a huge resource. And then here, the YouTube channel is where all of the matches will actually live. So I think that's it. I think that's a preview.
Yeah, I think we got it. East Division Cup coming up strong, and I mean, caps off literally just 2 months, 3 months of nonstop just VLA Tier 1 action, and I mean, one of our most intense, definitely our most intense season yet.
Oh, for sure.
But I mean, this is a great segue into you're going to have this huge event, and then after that, I mean, it's a month off before we get into Tier 1, VLA Cup, and it's crazy that we're already this far along in the season.
I know, right?
I feel like it was just yesterday that we were just stressing to all hell about what we were going to do this season. And so here we are, and everything's flowed smoothly. You can't say enough about the volleyball that's been played, and the storylines that has developed. It's really, really, really fun.
Yeah, it's great stuff. We're excited about this weekend up in Albany. I will be there. I see Charles Hanyos, who's a legend, in the chat. Charles, I can't wait to see you, buddy. I'm excited to be there. I'm excited to have you all there. Thanks a lot for watching. Thanks to our teams, our sponsors, our partners. Thanks to you for picking up memberships to the VLA YouTube channel, which you should all do. And we will see you this weekend in New York. I will be there bright and early on Saturday morning for the VLA All Day broadcast. And we'll be back on Around the VLA in the very near future to talk about it all, and then to preview the big one, the VLA Cup coming up in mid-May. So thanks for watching. We appreciate you. Have a good rest of your Wednesday evening, and we'll see you on Saturday morning.